We welcome all of you to the Encouragement Conquers All podcast. This is about how do you get encouraged? How do you stay encouraged? How do you keep encouraged? Whether you have faith, whether you don't have faith, whether you're a mom, a dad, a sister, a brother, whoever you are, that we want to bring individuals on this podcast that can help you, help me, make a meaningful impact in your relationships every single day. Whatever it's going to take in this world right now, there are so many pressures. There are so many challenges. There's so much hurt and pain, but guess what? We're here to encourage you. And I have Mark Hart, who's coming on here, who's the Chief Innovation Officer. Now, like, if I ever had a title, I'd love to have that title, innovation. I mean, I'm all about that. So I love that title. He works for Life Team, which is actually one of the leading Catholic youth ministry movements, transforming lives across parishes, across the world, in 30 different countries. He actually is a best-selling author. He is a speaker. He's been traveling for, I think, over 25 years at least. And Mark has dedicated his career to helping shape Catholic youth ministry. So he knows kids, he knows families, he knows anybody that deals with a kid, anybody that deals with family, he knows that. But also, he's a friend of mine. I just love this guy. And I love this guy because he's funny, first of all. So I love funny people. And not only is he funny, he is dedicated to his family, which I think that's first and foremost what we're going to be talking about today and how we're going to make a difference through our families. So, Mark, thanks for coming on, man. I love you.
Dude, I love you, Justin. It's sad that it takes this to get us to hang out, but I'll take it. Come on. You kidding?
Oh, I know. And just with all the different podcasts out there are just so many, and you've been on so many podcasts and just, so many different ways to help young people. How do you, right now, what is helping young people? I know anybody listening, they're either a young person, a young adult, or they help young people, or they work with a young person in their family. What do you see that's working, man? Because a lot of people are saying nothing's working.
That's a $1 million question. I wish there was a one size fits all. I think anytime someone says one size fits all, like Old Navy, it's crap. One size doesn't fit all. That's completely impossible.
Yeah, Old Navy. I'm not going to Old Navy.
I'm sorry. It doesn't work. Okay? But I think you ask a really, really important question, because Gen Z, iGen, whatever you want to call it, this is a really, really tricky culture and a really, really tricky generation, even trickier than millennial generation, in that they have always been so inundated with screens, right, and virtual and AI and everything else. Also, you just you whip in, I don't know, a global pandemic, right, which is just going to take everything and conflate it, right? But I think that when it comes to our young people, whether it's middle school, high school, college, right now, what's the one thing that's going to help them the most? And I find myself, this is going to sound painfully simple and almost counterintuitively dumb. Eye contact and conversation.
I love it.
And it sounds counterintuitive, right? Like, well, of course, eye contact. Yeah, but and it's not just because they're down, because you know what it is. We're also down as adults. Like, we are like this. I mean, I was in the airport last week, and I'm in the gate area. Remember back, like when you and I first started traveling, 25, 30 years ago, you'd be in a gate area and there'd be conversations going on. Oh, hey, where are you going? Oh, hey, business, or going to visit a loved one. Now it's just silence, right? The only thing you hear is the person on the left, because everybody's just like this. Adults, I mean, we fault our kids and grandkids with screens. We're all on our screens. And anymore, it's like when you engage a young person face to face, heart to heart, soul to soul, and make eye contact, it makes people very uncomfortable.
For sure.
But when you actually ask them a question and you engage them, and you've always been so good at this. Like, anytime we've been together, like, yeah, you've never touched your screen. Whenever you and I hang out, we never touch our screen. We're just like right there, But it's very rare. Like, I can say that about you because it's a very rare quality, because you're so present to people. That's one of your good charisms. But it's just, it's like when you look someone in the eye and you ask them a deep and meaningful question beyond the surface stuff, it's actually an affirmation of them, an affirmation of God in them. It's an affirmation of their soul, their virtue, their character, their integrity. It's an affirmation that you are not just a human doing, you're a human, and you are a soul, not just a body. And it's so painfully rare that it stands out to us. And I bet if I was to ask you, think like the last 5 people who you had a meaningful conversation with, they weren't looking at their phone during it. They were completely present, right?
Yeah, and I love that. You know, I was out to dinner with my friends come for New Year's every year. They've been coming since we were 19. You know, it's like 26 years, 27 years or something like that. And we went out to dinner and it was interesting. You know, a lot of times because we travel and we speak and we're doing all these things, we want to turn off, right? But of course, my friend is just hanging out with me for the first time in a while. She's like, "Hey," to the waiter, "Do you know what my friend does?" You know what I mean? You know, once they do that, you know, like, Mark, this happens to you too. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to look this guy in the eye. And even me, who that's my, you say that's my, you know, gift. But it becomes sometimes so challenging. So I look the guy in the eye and I just ask him, I go, "Hey, how's your best friend doing?" That's all I asked him.
It's a
And
good
that
question.
moment, the guy started like tearing up, like
Mm.
the waiter. Like all I asked him, and I think you're on to something. And what you're saying is this: how do we get them off the screens to eye contact with the least amount of awkwardness?
Yes, yes. Yes,
Because
where it's not mom and dad aren't plotting something, right? I'm just having a
yeah,
genuine human interaction. Yes, absolutely.
yeah. So how do we do that as a father, as a friend, as a leader? Like, what are ways that you've seen that you've had that transition from screen? You know, I guess for me, I'm on the screens because I'm hoping to get people off the screens so they can have these beautiful. And
Hmm.
that sounds like counterintuitive as well. So that's why I'm looking for your advice and your interest in this. Like, how can we do this? Because it just seems like such a taxing process.
It is, but but what a genuinely interesting question. Hey, how's your best friend? Like that's a great example. It's like you're not that's a curveball, right? You're not expecting that question. That waiter probably served 40 tables that night, right? Probably 200 tables in a week or something if they've working multiple shifts. That I guarantee was the only time they heard that question. So I think one, not just asking questions. And I think a lot of times, like we ask questions in small talk because we feel like we're obligated to. It's like I'm going to ask this quick little question, get through the small talk, so I can get to what I need from you. So that it's very much a transactional relationship. You know what I mean? It's like oftentimes we're like, hey, how's your wife? How's your kids? The person doesn't really care. They're just saying it because that's what they're supposed to say. So now we can get to the contract. Now we can get to the business part of stuff. You know what I mean? Whereas like, when I say to you, I'm like, hey, how's your wife? You know what I mean? Like, I mean it because, I'm invested in you and you're
Of
invested
course,
in me. But
you're an authentic
I think,
guy.
yeah, I think it's the questions that we ask. I think it's taking a genuine interest in someone else's interests. You know what I mean? Like, I think like, for instance, like, I work in ministry, right? So people expect me to talk about God and faith and church and things like that. So I think when I talk about, the NFL playoffs, I talk about the NBA, I talk about college
Joe
football and
Flacco.
NIL,
We gotta talk about Joe Flacco.
Joey F, baby. No, but like when I talk about those things, like I think people, it's almost it kind of catches them off guard. So I think it starts with knowing yourself, right? How am I perceived? Who do people think that I am? What people expect me to talk about? And then being able to say, I'm not going to throw a curveball for the sake of throwing a curveball, but I'm just going to say, if I wake up today with air in my lungs, obviously God's not done with me yet, right? So I have a mission, and as Mama T, as Mother Teresa would have said, just love your mission is to love the people in the 5 foot circle around you, right? I mean, friend and enemy, even in the TSA line, okay, even for coffee, even when there's someone who's being just completely ridiculous around you. Can I love the person in the 5 foot circle around me? And can I look at every day like I'm on a mission, and every day like it's an adventure, And if you look at it like that, then even if you get thrown a curveball by your friend, you're sitting in a meal and they're like, hey, you know what so-and-so does? And you're like, oh, you're like, now I'm on notice. Like, I mean, it happens to me. Like, I'll get on a plane, just someone sits next to you, they go, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, oh man.
Do I?
I'm
Yeah.
like,
How?
okay.
First of all, for us, is how do you
I'm
explain
like,
that?
it's a 4-hour flight across the country, and if I say that I do X, Y, or Z, it's gonna. I mean, you do not know what's going to come out, especially because it's so polarizing. When you start talking about faith and God, and it's going to evolve into politics and this and that. I mean, it's just like, I don't want to have this conversation. I just want to put in my AirPods and catch up on my show, because this is my 4-hour window when none of my kids need anything. You know what I mean? My
Exactly.
staff doesn't need anything. And I can just, but it's in that moment. It's in that moment that God wants to use you to unleash the greatness in somebody else, right? To like unleash the greatness in someone else's soul. And you have to be willing to say, okay, I did not sign up for this, but I'm going to answer the call in this moment, So it's getting back. It's getting back to just being people again, to having genuine conversations again that are not transactional, that are not selfish, that are not self-involved, And this is why, I mean, Freeman, I love scripture. This is why after 2,000 years, Shakespeare and Dante and Hemingway and Bronte, nobody can do better in explaining love than St. Paul did 2,000 years ago, when he said love's patient and love is kind, it's never boastful, love perseveres, love never fails. Like, it's it's not selfish, it's not rude. Like, no one's been able to top his simple yet profound adjudication. Just on, this is what love is, this is what love requires, and even the greatest writers and the greatest poets can't even come close to what he penned 2,000 years ago, because it was so simply profound.
Yeah, and we're talking about encouragement, and for me, and I know for you, the Bible is what encourages us.
Mm.
That's what keeps us going. Like today, I was reading about don't serve God and mammon, and like what that means. And I know
Mhm.
you can break it down because you've been breaking down scripture like nobody for so many years. But just in the simpleness of it, like the world can distract us so much
Mm.
from true intimacy, true relationship with our family and friends and with our God. The world, like, what are we supposed to do today? How are we supposed to reach this goal? How are we supposed to follow through on this task list that we have? How do we have to get this kid from there to here?
Mhm.
How within all the craziness, because your life, like my life, your personal life as well as your traveling life is very busy, so for me, like a lot of like putting disciplines in my life is what keeps me going. And one discipline is getting into the Word of God every day. How
Mm.
do you do that with your personal life and with your travel life? What's something that's been effective? Is there anything you're doing right now that's working, or anything you're seeing that's working for busy people?
I found over the years that people have this. People have a very wonky idea of what prayer is. It's like people treat prayer like it's hot yoga. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
just refreshing. It's detoxifying. No, it's not. It's not like prayer helps my relationship with God. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's a fallacy. Prayer is your relationship with God. If you're not praying, you don't have a relationship. Like it's the same way. If I don't talk to my wife, I don't have a relationship. I have a roommate. I have someone
Of course.
I do my taxes with. You know what I mean? So prayer is your relationship, and I think that I found over the hard way over the years is that I think for me, for a long time when I was younger, prayer was just sort of perfunctory. Prayer was just sort of reactive. I pray when I need to. I pray when I'm stressed. When I have to, but it got to a place where I'm like, I have to develop a prayer rhythm. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm so over. I mean, I'm overtaxed. You're overtaxed. Like, like you when you're not in meetings, you're not jumping on and off planes. You're an Uber, right? You're an Uber and an ATM. You're running kids to practice. You're running kids to performances. You're running kids back and forth to school. There's stuff going on, and I've had to find like I'm always so concerned that when I die and I'm standing at the pearly gates and St. Peter's standing there, I'm so concerned that he's going to look at me and be like, "Hey, Mark, let's look at your life like a pie graph, okay? Here's the amount of time you spent working. Here's the amount of time you spent stressing. Here's the amount of time you spent wasting time looking for something to watch on Netflix. Oh, and here's this tiny sliver over here, and that was prayer. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh boy, sorry, Pete, sorry, dude. Um, and so I've really gotten to a place where I'm like, if I have time to check scores and time to listen to my favorite podcast, how do I not have time to talk to God? And more importantly, to listen to God. So I've made my time in my car like my sacred time. Like I used to be like I'm catching up on all my calls when I'm driving. You know what I mean? I don't do that anymore. Like when I get in my car, I don't listen to my podcasts. I don't make my phone calls. Like when I'm driving, like that's my silent time. When I'm waiting at a pickup line outside of practice or outside of school, that's my sacred time. Like when I wake up in the morning, like before my feet hit the ground, I read my morning, like my morning readings, right? Like before I actually get out of bed. So I gotta have gotta get the readers now, but still I
Yep.
can sit there, later in bed. But I have to develop a rhythm of prayer where it's like and it got to a place, honestly, Justin, it was so sad. I actually, I would wake up in the morning for several years, and when I wake up, I would go to my phone and I would set an alarm for 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m., and I'd have them all in there. Just you hit the buttons, you know what I mean? And when it would go off, even if I was like in a meeting or something, I would stop and I would at 9 o'clock, like I'm gonna pray a decade. Like at
That's
3 p.m.,
awesome.
I'm gonna pray a decade. But I had to get to that place, and it's actually kind of sad because like I would be so reactive to the day, to staff or work or whatever. But I had to condition myself into a prayer rhythm every day where I would purposefully stop my day. And what ended up happening was the coolest thing ever because the grace builds on grace, right? So what ended up happening was the more I did that, then the more windows in the day in my schedule I would build in, like with my assistant, hey, don't schedule anything from 3 to 3:30 because I
That's
need to
great.
pray. You know what I mean? Don't schedule anything at noon to 12:30. I'll eat my lunch in half the time because I need time to pray. And what I found was by the time my demeanor, like my stress level was down, my joy was up, and dad wasn't coming in wiped, over caffeinated, annoyed, and reactive. Dad was coming in joyful, like fun loving, and prioritized in the right order. Do you know what I mean? It really
Oh, for
is
sure.
fascinating. It's fascinating, and this is the same like when people are like, "Well, when I work out, I have to work out here and here. I have to have my coffee here and here." We have rhythms for everything. We discipline ourselves in all kinds of ways. Why not when it comes to prayer? Why not when it comes to taking time to breathe? You know what I mean? And actually really process our life and our day on a daily basis. It makes for much healthier people.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that's been helpful for you? Like, what devotion do you use that helps you, and like, what keeps you focused? Like, I know the Hallow app. A lot of people are using that now. Like, what works for you to like if somebody's starting out in prayer or somebody's lost rhythm and they need to get back in action. What helps you? Like at 3 o'clock or at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, when you get to those moments, what helps you to stay focused? Because I think with the lack of discipline, I mean, I think disciplines are down like no other just because
Yeah.
of the phones, just because of, so much action going on. I
COVID.
think, yep. And then the COVID coming out of COVID, the disciplines are even more down because we're so used to the COVID life. Now
Mhm.
we have to figure this out. So what do you see that would work for somebody to get back to the basics?
I would love to say like I love to write. Like I love writing, but I hate journaling. Isn't that weird? Like I love like I can write a book, but I stink at journaling. Like it's just
Yeah,
that's not
I,
my
I
thing.
would agree with that.
Whereas like some of my closest friends, like that's their go-to, and I think that's so cool. Like just like that moment, that kind of like that brief self-reflection. For me, like I mean, I'm Catholic. I love the Rosary. I love Chaplet of Divine Mercy, like just classic prayers. But I'll tell you something that's really really changed my life is the minute I started doing what we in the church would call the daily examen, which is when I go to bed at night before I go to sleep,
Yeah.
really purposefully, like, and not like when you're groggy half asleep, you know what I mean? I got to a place where I couldn't do it in bed anymore. I had to sit on the couch in my room before I would get in bed and do it.
Yep.
But I would take 10 or 15 minutes and just walk through my day and examine my day, examine my conscience, examine where I did well in terms of with coworkers or with strangers or with my spouse, with my kids, and where I fell short when it came to virtue, and where I fell short when it came to loving people who are acting unlovable. You know what I mean? Where I got into a place where I'm just being kind of crotchety or ornery or just overtired, where I let crap get to me. And that really has changed my life. And it's not a prayer discipline we talk about very often, but it's a really important one. And there's this part in the book of Romans. St. Paul, like, really smart dude, and like when you read Romans, like, Romans is not easy reading. It's like, hey buddy, use a comma. Come on, man. Like,
Some of the
okay,
best stuff, though.
you're really smart. But yeah, but it's like his theological opus. Like, it's really it's dense. You know what I mean? Some of his other epistles are pretty simple. That's really dense. But there's this beautiful spot in Romans in chapter 12 when you start right around like 9 through 21, which actually is a great guide to a daily examine, because it's talking about how you're putting up with annoying people on earth. Okay. And it's just a reality. But I would read through it, I pray through it, but I was just like, when you daily take stock of yourself, not just end of the year, New Year's resolution stuff, not just I'm spending way too much on a therapist who has more issues than me stuff, but like when you actually really look at your life on a daily basis and say, where can I improve? Well, if that's the way you go to bed, then your mind, body, spirit, you're putting yourself into a place where you're like at peace, right? You can go to bed at peace, and you can have a resolve. I'm gonna do better tomorrow. Well, then when you wake up the next morning, then you make what we in the church will call like a morning offering, where you wake up and you go, okay, God, like, I don't know what you're gonna throw at me today. I know where I messed up yesterday, but see, now I have a game plan. Now I have a strategy. And this is like, and I know you love football. Like, this is why. Like, when you watch football, like, pro teams spend all week installing an offense, and they script all the first plays. Like, everybody on the team goes in knowing these are the plays run to start the game.
Yep.
We have a game plan. We're going to see what the enemy does. And if the enemy throws something at us that we're not expecting, well, now we're going to pivot and change our game plan. But we have a game plan. That's why the daily examine at the end of the day is so important. So the next day when you wake up with a strategy and a game plan to do better than the day before. And you're ready when the curveball gets thrown at you.
Yeah, and what I say is, if everyone did that, like you just took what Mark just shared with you and did a daily examine at the end of the day and did a morning offering saying, hey, how am I going to do better? How am I going to really focus on the Lord instead of myself? If everybody did this, like, just think, like, if we just stopped the world and said, all right, world, every single person on the planet, could you imagine? Could you imagine if the whole planet, right? We all said, we're just going to do those two things.
Can you
Where
imagine
would this world be, Mark?
Can you imagine if every parent did it, how much better off our kids would be? If every leader and boss did it, how much better off our staffs, our companies, our hospitals would be? I mean, also, just if every Christian did it. I mean, like, the world would change. It would change. It would be amazing.
Because it's funny, you're a funny guy. I know people might not know that, but I know that you're a fun guy. I'll give you a dad joke. You're a mushroom. You're a fun guy, right? So, that's
please don't do
the
that
dad
again.
jokes, right? But you're better than a dad joke, right? You're like better than a dad joke. But I mean, it's things right now are so funny, like just like what people are passionate about, like,
Oh my gosh!
right? Like,
Do you
what
do you know
have
where
you seen
do you know where popular opinion comes from? I was thinking about this the other day. Popular opinion is the result of unpopular truth. Okay, popular opinion is a result of unpopular truth. I'm going to say a truth. You're not going to like it. Common sense, unfortunately, is not that common anymore. But I'm going to say an unpopular truth, and the result's going to be you push back with with a popular opinion, right? Because unpopular truth, it holds me accountable. It puts me on notice. It makes me uncomfortable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn and go into the corner with my blankie and suck my thumb and just and reject what you're saying, because this makes me uncomfortable. So I'm going to go where I am comfortable into my safe space. And you're like, okay, well, you can do that all day long, but that's still subjective and it's still not reality. And we're still called and we're forced to live in reality. And like, as a leader, you're forced to live in reality. Okay, you have to have uncomfortable conversations with your staff sometimes. You have to have uncomfortable conversations with your kids sometimes. And you know what? Like, and in the Christian life, I mean, this is one of the reasons I love being Catholic, and we have a crucifix, not just a cross. Like, the Christian life is all about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay. If that wasn't the case, then the crucifix, the cross, is the dumbest symbol in the history of antiquity for anything. It's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I mean, like, there's this great line in the Gospel of John. Jesus looked at the 12, and this is when he's on his way to the cross. This is after the Last Supper. He's on his way to the cross. And he says, in this life, you will have trouble. I'm telling you this so that you'll be peaceful. I always like to envision like the 12 are going, they're like, I'm sorry, boss, what? Like, I was picture like someone like in the back, like Bartholomew being like, hey, boss, can you run that? Can you say that again? Well, in this life, you're going to have trouble. I'm telling you this so that you'll be peaceful. And you're like, what the crap does that mean? Like, it's just so confusing, right? You're like, that makes no sense. Like, why would you follow that?
That paradox, why there's so many mysteries.
Beautiful paradox, right? That's the beautiful part. And that's why you started this by saying we want to give encouragement to people because times are hard and people are suffering and there's stress and there's anxiety and there's worry. And this is just part of life. It's part of fallen nature. But this is why, as a Christian, I love the cross so much, right? Because I have a Savior who went to hell and back, literally. I have a Savior who has suffered so greatly. And if at that moment, 2,000 years ago, when the Roman legion nailed this obscure carpenter to a piece of wood, if in the middle of his suffering, he would have called on legions of angels to come and save him, right? Then how, when you and I are suffering, would we have any ability or faith in being able to go to him, right? Because he'd be like, hey, I know you're suffering. I know your marriage is breaking up. I know your health is terrible. I know your finances are horrible. I know your kids have left this. And he'd be like, I get it. And you'd be like, no, you don't. Because the minute suffering got hard for you, you called on angels and you decimated the Roman legion. Like, you jumped off the cross. I can't trust you. But instead, because he allowed himself to be destroyed, and he didn't call on a miracle. The miracle of Good Friday is that he didn't call on a miracle when he could have. So all of a sudden, like, now we have faith that I can go to this Savior and say, you do understand my suffering. You do know me in the innermost depths of my being. And I can trust you with my suffering. And I can trust you with my anxiety and my fear and my frustrations and my temptations and my sins. I can trust you with everything because you've literally been to hell and back. And you understand. And that's why when people like because again, counterintuitive. The cross is very counterintuitive, but it only makes sense through the eyes of faith, and it only makes sense when you come to grips with, I don't just need a moral philosopher, and I don't just need a rabbi teacher. I need a Savior because I am a mess. I'm a mess as a man, as a dad, as a husband, as a boss. I'm a mess, and it's like the more you realize what a mess you are, then the more you realize what a mess you are, right? I don't fear the man. I don't fear the man or woman who's a mess and admits it. I fear the person who is a mess and doesn't admit it.
No, and that's so true. And Mark, let me tell you something. Like, it's something I do. It's when you say or do something that is uncomfortable within the culture we're in. See, Jesus, that's what he did. He did something very uncomfortable. He forgave, right? He forgave in the midst of an unpeaceful situation.
Mm-hmm.
That right now, right? He walked with people who didn't believe what he believed, but walked in their mess with them and said, hey, at least I can show them this cross, this suffering in the midst of the different belief systems, in the midst of, and I think right now, why encouragement, the word encouragement. Did you know I had a kid, we have a missionary outreach like Life Team does, and he was a missionary. And he goes, did you know I grew up in the church? I grew up in faith. Did you know I never heard the word encouragement in my life?
Really?
I know. I was shocked. Now, this kid was an athlete, a regular kid. And for me, like, and this is what I mean, like, so encouragement, right, is doing something for someone else that you might not necessarily agree that it would be encouraging for you. It's like this, right? I use the example. If you were to come to Syracuse, right, Mark, and you were
That's
to
not
knock.
happening. It's not
Yeah,
happening
I
in
know.
January. I'll tell
Nobody
you that.
really wants to come here.
Not in
That's why we
January,
had to
dude.
move our whole mission to Columbus, because I'm like, the administrative staff and just me are here, so I won't make you come, okay? But let's just say you had to come here, and you didn't tell me you were coming, but you happened to know I was in town, and you just came to my house, didn't even call. How's it going? It's Justin Fatica, and I can tell you I'm so thankful for your encouraging messages and engagement and joining us for our videos that we hope are bringing you encouragement when you need it most. Now, before you go, I want to tell you about some exciting news. Since I was 19 years old, it's my dream to build facilities for kids. Well, that dream is happening. It's a place where young people and their families can relax, socialize, work out, be encouraged, that they can make a difference in somebody's life every day or have their lives be impacted. That's where we need you. We need you to ask yourself if you'd like to help us to break ground. You can be a part of this mission within less than 1 year. But if we don't have help, we can't do this. Now, I know right now there are a lot of people struggling, but we're just looking for pocket change, a rainy day fund, or to connect us with partners who can help make this dream a reality. We want every single kid and every single family to know they're amazing. And it starts with you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content so we can keep you updated, so you can keep us going. And together, remember, we are making a lasting impact. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support, and stay encouraged. And never forget, you were made for an amazing day, and it starts with what lives within you. You're amazing. And you walked in my house and didn't even tell me you were in there, and you were standing there. To me, that would be one of the most encouraging things you could do in my life. Because when I was a kid, that's what my uncles used to do. That's what my aunts used to do when I grew up being Italian. Nobody ever knocked on the door. They just came in. And my point is, right now, like what Jesus did on the cross, he knew truth. He is truth. He said, how can I encourage the world? What am I going to do? I'm going to do one act that's going to encourage the world, that's going to speak to them no matter what situation they're in, that can be the most encouraging thing I could do for them, that they would agree it is. And that's, I don't know if this makes sense, but that's what I'm striving with this podcast, with the message, is like, how can we dig down deep inside of stuff and stop thinking about, this is what I think will be encouraging? Because I don't think Jesus thought that would be encouraging for him.
No, yes. I'm such a word nerd. I love etymology. I love where words come from. Encourage, encourage literally means encourage, like encourage. Courage, I think, is one of the most misunderstood words, probably in the modern era. Right? We mistake courage for bravery and bravery for courage when the two are not the same. Right? We think of courage as the absence of fear. That's not what courage is. Courage is the unwillingness to be mastered by fear, right? So the word courage, cor, your heart, like corazon, right, in Spanish, and agere, which means to act. So to have courage or to encourage means to act from your heart. To act from your heart. There's a reason. That's the whole reason you have this podcast, because you're acting from your heart, and you want other people to do the same thing, and not to be mastered by fear, and not to be mastered by the world, not to be mastered by reactionism, by sin, by anything else. So really, to encourage someone means to help them unleash their hidden greatness. It means to help them act from their heart. But to act from your heart, you have to first form your heart. And you have to first let your heart be formed, right? So if you want to encourage parents out there right now, pour into your kids. Care less about your 401k and less about your will and testament, and care more about helping them to learn and understand God's will, okay? Not your will. Make that your priority, right? Make your office a workspace, make your home your vocation. Pour into your kids. If you don't have kids, or if your kids are out of the house, then you've got time. You know what? Then pour into somebody else's kids. Go be a mentor. Go be a coach. Go give the wisdom. Go share your life experiences, good and bad, but go pour into the next generation, right? I mean, if you're an aunt, an uncle, a spiritual parent, like that kind of thing, pour in. And this is something you do so well with all your missionaries, with all your staff. Like it's if you want to leave your mark, if you want your life to echo, it's not about leaving people material things. It's about leaving people with uh, with wisdom, with leaving people with an example, right? That's how your life's going to echo on, because your life will echo on in the people whose lives you've touched. So to act from your heart and really to encourage somebody really does mean, I'm not just going to give you a pep talk and a shot in the arm. It means I'm going to enter into your life and your mess, and I'm going to walk with you. That could be for 30 minutes with that waiter we talked about, a while ago. That could be with your next door neighbor. That could be with your kid. Like, it could be a lifelong journey. But I'm going to take an interest in who you are, not just what you do for me. And in doing so, like you said, like when your relatives would come over, that was a huge affirmation, because our presence is an affirmation. How many funerals have you been to? How many weddings have you been to where really you did not want to go? You didn't, right? You had a busy day. You came up here, you had a busy weekend. It would be easier not to put on the tie and not to go. But you go. And that presence there at someone else's turning point in their life, whether it's happy or sad, that presence is an affirmation. That presence speaks value. That presence encourages them, because they know I'm not alone. And they know he's a busy guy, she's a busy girl. They could be someplace else, but they chose to be here with me.
Yeah. So how do we stay in our core, in our heart of hearts, like to keep actively listening, to keep actively encouraging, to keep actively, because this is the saddest thing I see. What bore out of this, like, I go to these basketball tournaments. I'm an AAU coach. Like, this is like, you got like next weekend, like the number one player in the country will be there. There'll be all these people praising this kid. Then there'll be coaches fighting with each other, refs getting beat up. I mean, it's wild. I mean, it's like, and I just look at that as like, that's like what family life. People are yelling at each other, not forgiving. There's just all this mess going around. Like, how are we able, with like Jesus, you were saying, like, oh, there's all this trouble, bring peace, like you were saying, like Bartholomew, like,
Yeah.
like, how are we able to do that effectively right now in this era? Because even within the church, it's like you can't get in a conversation without being on eggshells, because you're nervous if you say, hey, I don't like that prayer style. All of a sudden you're not going to have five friends. You know what I mean? Like, like you're like, we're like, everything's about what we're doing right now. It's not getting to the horror. Like, cry with that kid, laugh with that kid, hug that kid, look at him and listen. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. Like, how can we do? You're one of the best
Yeah.
at this, from my perspective. How are we going to do this?
It's a funny word, perspective. Again, I like words. Perspective, from the Latin, parens facere, it doesn't mean to look at, it means to look through, right? To look through a situation. This is what God was talking about through the prophet Isaiah. He says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. As high as the heavens are above the earth, are my thoughts above your thoughts. So God is always looking at things from a 30,000 foot level, right? He always sees things. He sees the bigger picture. We see the dashboard. He sees the horizon, right? And the challenge on a daily basis is to keep perspective. So you're coaching AAU this weekend, right? There's going to be, like you said, parents yelling at refs, coaches yelling at each other. There's going to be ego. There's going to be stress and stuff. How do you, in that moment, right before you you break huddle and take the court, when you have that timeout, how do you keep every young soul to keep proper perspective? You know what I mean? Affirmation, validation, challenge, and I'm going to throw this one in too: levity, sense of humor, right?
Yeah, of
Like, don't
course.
take yourself so
So seriously,
seriously.
of
And we
course.
we have, and honestly, I think one of the things we've lost in culture, and again, I'm not just going to blame COVID on this, I think it definitely exacerbated it. We've lost our sense of humor.
Yep.
We've lost our sense of levity. A lot of people think, like, they look and they go, oh, well, that's just, you're just being silly for silliness sake. That's just stupid. It's about money. It's about business. It's about this, about end results, about whatever, deliverables. And like, no, you know what? When you lose your sense of humor, you lose everything. This
Of
is
course.
why this is why I love really, really talented stand-up comedians, like, because they can look at the same situation that you and I look at, but they can turn their perspective like a quarter of an inch, and they look at it just a little bit differently. And all of a sudden, we're looking at the same thing, but now I'm laughing about it because
Yep.
they saw something I didn't see. This is why humor, Walt Disney should call humor the sixth sense, right? Is that like you can look at
I agree
something
with
and
that.
laugh about it. And this is why, back in the 50s, there was an archbishop named Fulton Sheen, right? He was on his way to sainthood. He won primetime. Like, he won primetime. His show was more popular than Milton Berle, who was like the most popular comedian at the time. But Fulton Sheen was really funny, but he was really witty, but he had a great perspective, right? Like, he would look at his situation. When you read his writings, he's profound, but he's also very funny. He would look at a situation, he'd be able to keep proper perspective. I remember this is really, really, really random. I don't know why I'm telling this. There was a story about remember Joe Montana and the 49ers, when they won all the Super Bowls back like in the
Notre
80s, right?
Dame, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, baby. Notre Dame. So Montana, they were playing against the Bengals, and they were down. It was the fourth quarter, and he had to organize like a game-winning drive. I remember this. And there's this famous story that he went into the huddle, and it's like there's like 2 minutes left in the game. They have to score a touchdown to win the Super Bowl, right? And he gets everybody in the huddle, and you have all these all pros, these Hall of Famers around him, and you'd think like, this is where you just got to be locked and focused, and this is going to be our play. This is what we're going to do. And he looks over, and he looks over the stands. And he goes, "Hey, is that John Candy, like the late actor?" And it was John Candy in the front row. And all the guys were like, "Oh my gosh, I love that guy. He's so funny." But here was Joe Montana, this Hall of Fame quarterback, in the most important moment of his life, on a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter. And he knew that he had to keep the guys in the huddle light, right? He knew that's what leadership does. That was encouraging for them. He could have just gone through the whole, like the next playlist, right? Here's like 5 plays, and all of a sudden everybody gets tight. Instead, he points this out. Everyone starts laughing. They remember this is still a game. We're like so lucky to get to play this game, right? And this is like the best moment of our lives. Like, let's just go out there and have fun. And talent prevailed, and they scored a touchdown. They won the game. They won the Super Bowl. Maybe they won 4. But I think it's like you hear those kinds of moments, right? With different like iconic coaches, iconic leaders, right? And you go, huh, there's something to that, right? There's something to this perspective thing, to be able to keep a sense of levity and keep the sense of like, look into the horizon. If you get so caught up in the dashboard, you're going to miss the horizon. That's when you rear end somebody, right? You're so caught up in my life and my issues and my stuff right now. That's when you rear end somebody. Keep your eyes up, okay? Even if you're stressed, even when you're having a bad day, you're down. Keep your eyes up, because you keep your eyes up and you remember where you're going, not just where you are.
Yeah, no, and I think that's something you do with your sense of humor. Whenever I've heard you speak with me, when you're at different events, you're able to do that when you speak, but you also do that just in that's you. You do that in your everyday. You do that in your everyday life. And I think you're onto something. It's like you got to be able to laugh at yourself. If you can't laugh at yourself, you can't laugh at anything. And
Well, I guarantee everybody else is laughing at you. You know what I mean? If you can't laugh at
for
yourself,
sure.
everybody else is laughing at you for the wrong
Yeah,
reasons.
and most of the time, if you ever come for me, you would laugh like when you see the coaching, what have you, because I'm doing things to entertain myself while everybody else is getting wild. I don't know if that's bad, but sometimes I think that's my own self focus, so I'll work on that. But I think right now what we need to do is like we do need more sense of humor, like of how can we take things like what matters, what doesn't really matter. And I mean, I see that you're able to do that. And how did I think that's your charism. That's a gift you've been given. Like, so how can you teach that to somebody, or is that something you just have within you? What do you think?
I think you could. I think you can teach it. I'm not saying everybody should just walk around and try to be a stand-up comedian. Like, if you're not funny, don't try to be. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, I'm just kidding.
When you
No, but
tell somebody
I
they're
think it
not
starts
funny,
with
that's funny.
you are not funny. No,
Yeah.
I think that I think it begins with just acknowledging your blessedness, acknowledging how blessed you are. Right, like everything we have in this life is a gift from God, right? Even if someone is really successful, like in their business, entrepreneurial, right, philanthropic, and they're like, no, I've worked really hard for everything I've gotten. I started in the mailroom and now I'm CEO. And I would say to them, that's awesome. But even that work ethic that you have is a gift from God. Everything is a gift. Everything is a blessing. I have a good friend. He's going through cancer for the third time now. He's beaten cancer twice. He's in it for the third time. And he looks at me, he says, Mark, I'll tell you something. He says, if everything's a gift from God, then cancer's a gift because it offers me appreciation every day of my life. And I'm like, that's perspective, man. Like, that's wise. But I'll tell you, if everything is a gift, then the only thing, Justin, that's all mine and all yours is our sin, is our selfishness and our pride and our ego. It's the only thing that's all
That's
ours.
true.
Everything
That's
else
true
is gift.
humility.
Everything else is gift, you know? And I think that if we start with how blessed we are, that immediately ushers in perspective that there is a God and it ain't me. And, maybe everybody else hates me, they don't like me at all. But I have a God who made me this way. I have a God who loves me in spite of me. And you know what? And I'm going to pay that forward. You know what I mean? I have a God who's merciful with me. I'll be merciful with others. I have a God who loves me. I'm going to love others. I have a God who forgives me. I'm going to forgive others. And a God who believes in me, even if I don't believe in God all the time. Even if I don't believe in myself all the time, He believes in me, and that's why I'm here. You know what I mean? And that's why you have a sense of mission. And I think that's where a sense of humor comes from. It's just a recognition that that life is precious and life is short. And as parents, we know that the years are go fast, the days are long, right? Days are long, but the years go fast. And before you know it, we're looking back and we're like looking at pictures, we're having memories, and we're like, man, where did the time go? And I think that's why as you get older, you laugh at the stupid stuff. When you're young, the stupid stuff really stresses you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As you get older, you're like, you just don't care anymore. That's what like, you watch like an older person and they'll just say stuff that's so inappropriate, not politically correct. And
So
it's
fun.
so fun. It's so fun. It's funny because you're like, I don't care. I lived this long. Let's see if you can. It's just like they don't just say stuff, and and it just sounds so wrong, but it's actually so right because they're like, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, don't let this stuff unravel you, and I think, and I'm sure you have these conversations with your own kids. Like, you'll see them get really just like, and they'll get amped up or get worked up or something. Like high school drama, right? High school drama, and you see it for that. Now, for them, it's their world
It's
because this is all
everything.
they
Yeah.
know. And this is the challenge of the parent to be able to say, I get, like, first you have to validate, I get it. I get why this stresses you. But then to try to help them get proper perspective again and go, but don't forget that I love you. Don't forget how awesome you are. Don't forget about the God who loves you. Don't forget that if God entrusts this to you, obviously He thinks a lot of you, right? I mean, it's just, I think a sense of humor it all begins with realizing how blessed we are, realizing how small we are, and realizing how funny this thing called life really is.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds me of we were at a game and Luigi Pasquarella, of course, the Italian kid, and he
Is there a more
he's
Italian name in the history of man than Luigi
yeah,
Pasquarello? That's
Luigi
great.
Pasquarella, right? What about that guy? And by the way, the other person who reminds me of what you're talking about is my grandmother, because my grandmother is turning 105 this year. And she is the
Oh,
funniest.
wow.
She's the funniest person you ever meet. I've had her on the podcast. She's the funniest person ever. I mean, the things that she says. I'm writing a whole book, but I'm finished this book. I'm writing a whole book just on my 105-year-old grandma. I mean, this lady's ridiculous. She's like, you don't want to spend time with me. It's just she'll smile like you're missing out. Like But Luigi, getting back to Luigi, we were tied 49-49, and it's an intense moment. What are you gonna do? What play am I gonna choose? We're playing against the number one team, and I'm ready to get super intense, right? Right, like gosh, you better set the screen properly. Be coach moment, and
Mhm.
Luigi's like, I'm like, look, you're not even playing my brain. I'm like, you're not even in the game. Why are you asking a question? And he's like, Coach, we're going to win the game. And I'm like, okay, why is that? He goes, because who are we playing for? Remember, Coach, you told us to say who we're going to play for. Before the game, I always say,
Mm.
who are you grateful for? Who are you going to sacrifice and give it all you got for? Who are you most thankful for? Play that game for them. And then I had to go around and go, who are you playing for? And we barely got to the play. And we end up winning the game, right? You know, and it's like, but the whole point is like, the whole point is get to what matters. That's what's going to make your life more joyful, more fun loving. Get to what's important. Get to what you're grateful for. Get to what means something. And I can't tell you, you know, look, I have people in my life I spend, 30 minutes with a year. I have people in my life I spend 3 hours a year. I have people in my life I spend, 100 hours with. But somebody like yourself who is a grateful person, I think that is for me, the single greatest way you can encourage someone, because for us as believing in the Eucharist so much, the communion that is Jesus Christ, that means thanksgiving. That means gratefulness. We're grateful for Jesus dying for us. We're grateful. Gratefulness. And the second thing you shared, which I think is the second way you can be the most encouraging person on the planet, is admit you make mistakes, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing more freeing to my children when I say, look, I screwed up, man.
Yeah.
Whenever I do that, whenever I say I screwed up to my kids, Mark, I don't know if you see this, but it's always this like weight. Like I can like, it's like that powerful. It's like a weight comes off of them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make me want to mess up, because my dad always taught me. My dad, he's Italian, so he's like, I go, why don't you ever apologize? He goes, well, I don't do anything to apologize for, you know? I go, I want to be this guy. First of all, I want to be that guy. Right?
I love it. No, I know you're right though. You're right. Like it, it's the whether it's in parenting, whether it's in marriage, you can puff your chest and shake your fist and pound the table and dig your heels in, man. I just found over the years, the moments you need to do that really are few and far between. Those are moments that are about morality and moral decision making and things like that, where you're like, this is not who we are. This is not how we're going to act. But more often than not, the just to be able to look at somebody in the eyes and say, I failed. I failed to love well. I reacted. I did not love you well. I did not make the right decision. I'm disappointed in myself. I need to do better. Boy, when those walls come down faster than Jericho, man, like you'll watch the countenance of your kids just change. Like whenever my wife and I do marriage prep over at the church, we have all these young couples, who've all got life figured out at 25, and I look at them and I'll look at the guys. I'm like, you guys, you can be right or you can be happy, man. You can be right or you can be happy, And if you're going to be right all the time, you better buy a really comfortable couch. Because honestly, like, the fastest way to happy marriage is learn how to say, I'm sorry. And people that say, well, love means never having to say you're sorry. That is such crap. Love means having to say you're sorry a lot, like a lot, and to be able and be willing to say it with a true sense of humility and a true honesty and sincerity, and I always tell the guys, I'm like, hey, and by the way, saying I'm sorry still means you get the last word. You know what I mean? So it counts. So ride that one into the sunset, dude. But no, it's it's humility is like underwear. You should have it, but not try to show people you have it. Like put a belt on, dude. Pull your pants up. But
humility's like underwear. Did you miss that?
Underwear.
I'll tell you one.
You should have it. Just don't show people you have it, right?
What if you got skid marks, dude?
Skid marks.
And anybody that says they don't, they're lying.
I don't know. I love you, man. I wish, honestly, we have all the answers. People should just, we have all the answers to life. I tell you, we're so smart. And it's so rare to have people who are so smart and so good looking at the same time. It's just, I tell you.
See, what's funny about you is like you can get away with that. Like if I don't know, like I couldn't pull that one off, man. I'd really be mad at that. No, but what I really want to know is that the thing that you shared about the exam, and I really want to take that home for every person really hone in on that. Like taking 10 to 15 minutes before you go to bed, really hone in on that. That's an important thing. And when you wake up, taking that 10 to 15 minutes or, just even, 5 minutes when you wake up and really examine how you're going to live out that day. Because if you can do that, then you can do the same thing with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the
Yes.
end of the day,
Amen.
like, so does that make sense? So you got to
Amen.
mirror that with, so I look at it goes just like the 3, the 12, the 500. You've got to mirror that. You have those two areas. You do that in your own life personally, then you do that with your family, and
Mm-hmm.
then you do that with the world. Be a grateful person when you make mistakes. One of my favorite things to do, because coaches know everything. If you're a coach, you know
Of
everything.
course. Yes.
Of course, of course, is saying, you know what? I didn't run the right play.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do that sometimes. Hey, I didn't get you ready for the 131. I didn't do that. That was my fault. And that relieves pressure. And isn't that what Jesus did on the cross? And that's why we
Mm-hmm.
need to follow him and live for him. He relieved the pressure
Hey, honestly,
graciously.
like, I mean, Hitler had millions of followers. Jesus had 12, and one of them took off. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's reality. You know what? Like, hey, you're not always gonna do it right. Bill Belichick got fired multiple times. Andy Reid got fired. Jim Harbaugh got fired. Like the most successful coaches get fired, right? The best actors make a bad movie. The best writers write a book that no one buys or reads or likes. You know what I mean? Like it just happens. It just happens. The best singers have a terrible album. You know what I mean? Like admit it, own it, learn from it, move on from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's as we go forward, I appreciate having you on, but what would be, you've only got one day to live, or a week to live, uh, what what kind of encouragement would you want to bring to the world, Mark? Like what would you want? Your doctor says, "Hey, look, this is it, man. You got a day or a week left, man. What do what do you want to do with your time?"
That's a great question. I think I'd say the only thing sadder than ending a day without laughter is ending a day without prayer. So when you wake up, make it your mission every day to pray and to laugh and then repeat. It's like, lather, rinse, repeat, right? Pray, laugh, repeat. If you can do that every day, even though physically you age, emotionally, spiritually, you will not, you know? Um, and never underestimate the difference you can make in someone else's life by being willing to be broken with them, by being willing to show them not who you are, but who you're not. And I think that empowers people and that encourages people because, it's not like anybody's sitting around being like, where's the worst picture of myself I can put on my Facebook as my avatar, right? Everybody
Of
wants, hey,
course.
honey, where's that picture from that vacation 30 years ago when I was 20 pounds lighter and tan? No one's like looking for everybody's got like 6 chins, you know what I mean? Everybody wants to put forward this best version of themselves. And the best version of yourself is the version that's growing. The best version of yourself is the version that's improving. The best version of yourself is the version that's desiring to become better so you can make the people around you better. And people, everyone's like the 7-minute abs to holiness, the 7-minute abs to success, the 7-minute abs to, no, holiness takes work. Success takes work, right? Leadership takes work. A successful marriage takes work. Holy and amazing kids take work. There's no 7-minute apps. Um, so I think that at the end of the day, it's just like be willing to get up and dedicate yourself to becoming better. And if you want to raise a saint, become a saint.
Unbelievable, Mark. And in closing, what's one project that I could throw out there that you're most, you've done so many unbelievable projects all these years. What's something that you're doing now or you've done in the past that you just really are excited about? Because I'm excited about that and all the good work you've done.
I appreciate that. I really love what we're doing at Life Team. With our summer camps, we host student conferences, we host training conferences. So you can check that out at lifeteam.com. I'm really excited. I have a new Bible timeline video series for high schoolers that came out last year called
Yeah.
Venture. I have a brand new one coming out for middle school kids in about a month called Encounter. It's a new version of it, and it's never. I'm going to send you a copy. It's going to blow your mind. For middle school kids, we have it's taken us 2.5 years I took you 2 years to write it and develop it, with all the stuff. But there's so many special effects, the art, the graphic art, the design. It's so cool. It just pops on the screen. And I've been testing it with middle school kids, and they're actually really engaged in it, which makes me very happy.
That's
Because
awesome.
middle schoolers are really hard to get through to. But there's just a lot of really cool, exciting stuff.
Give me that. Send me that link. Send Justin that link so I can put up so everybody can get that and receive that. And and it's important because after this, everybody needs different tools to grow or help their kids to grow. And
for sure.
And I want you to know, honestly, one of the DVDs that we still use it in our homeschool group. It's your DVD. They didn't know we were friends or whatever. I go, oh, what are you guys doing in your theater? It was you. And I was like, oh, that's Mark's my buddy.
Hey, I wanted to mention one other thing. For anybody listening to this who's a parent, whether you're Catholic or not, whether you're a young parent, older parent, my wife and I wrote a book during COVID, and it's called Our Not Quite Holy Family. And you can find it on Amazon. And I've been really, really blown away by the response to it, because it was, they came to us and said, you guys want to write a parenting book? And I'm like, no, get out of here. We're the last ones in the world to write a parenting book. And we started talking about it over a date one night. And the idea became, what if instead of telling everybody what they should do, what if we just shared a bunch of our failures and funny stories?
That's awesome.
And really, it just became a book of here's funny stories and real stories from our real life that just kind of show what a mess we are, what a failure we are. And it was funny. It's it won awards. It's so funny. People they've come to us and they're like, it was so refreshing. And so my husband and I laughed out loud so many times. It was so refreshing, but it also gave us a lot of practical things of what to do and what not to do. And it was really a fun write, and it's a really fun read. So if anybody right now listening to this is just feeling down, if you're a dad, if you feel you're not doing great as a husband or a father, or your mom, it feels like you're just failing. It's called Our Not Quite Holy Family. You can find it on Amazon. It's a quick read. It's easy, but it might be maybe it'll just give you a little bit of hope that you're not the worst in the world.
Yeah, and I'll make sure we'll get that. We'll look that up because I like that approach. That takes humility. Did you know in Father Bergamo's book it says that if you can be humiliated, you're not humble. And so if you're able to put yourself out there, that's what I've always believed. I've always done so many dumb things and things that I'm like, why did I even do that? And so that's beautiful. No, I'm definitely going to put that one out there. And I'm going to read that book. I'll read that book.
It's good to see you, man. You're getting younger and younger. You found the fountain of youth up there in New York. I don't know about you. It's just, I don't know. I don't like it. Get some gray hair. Get some gray hair. Work harder.
I think I'm old. I think I feel older and I look older, but we'll see what I can do. No, but thanks.
Good luck this weekend, Coach. It's good to see you, man. I love you, brother.
Yeah, you too, man. Love you so much.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with someone who needs a little encouragement. For more uplifting content, follow us on our social media pages. See you in the next episode.